I just want to read before we continue just one of the emails. Some of the emails Pasha can't read Barabim, but one of them I can, just to give a chizuk to the olam, just to see that people Baruch Hashem are getting a chizuk, and it's possible for every person to get a chizuk also. This email basically reads as follows: I've spoken to you in the past. I'm 20 years old. I have no words to thank you for the Shovovim series because I was very successful after I spoke to you. But we are all human. He has that in capitals. We are all human, and I felt terribly on pornography and gave up the fight which I've been fighting for years, but you gave me the opportunity to restart, and I'm doing very well. Keep going. Thank you for saving the world. That's amazing. That's a chizuk, Rabbi Isai. What can I tell you? That is a chizuk. That means every single one of us can get a tremendous chizuk as well. Like I said, some of the emails can't be read barabim, but that one I felt was a chizuk for the olam, which is gavaldik, and every single one of us can. So I want to speak today, try to get to some practical strategies, maybe. We'll see what we get to. But we'll start with one idea. We know the Torah tells us in Parashas Noach that Noach was a tzaddik, right? And the Mefarshim are busy. Rashi goes backwards and forwards. What does that mean? He was a tzaddik. What would have been, Zog the Mefarshim, Rashi brings it, what would have been if Noach was in the door, the generation of Avraham Avinu? So according to many, it would have been Noach Shav L'Klub. He wouldn't have been anything. Now, I can understand if you want to say that Noach wouldn't have been, the greatest of the greatest. But to say that he would have been in nothing, what does that mean? What does it mean? If he would have been in Avraham Avinu's generation, what's pshat? So there's a modig Shem Yishmael, Rabbi said. We have to know the Shem Yishmael every time we walk out on the streets, and every time we're on technology, we have to know the Shem Yishmael. The Shem Yishmael says the most amazing thing. He says like this. He says there are two ways of becoming a tzaddik. Two ways. Two ma'alchim, how a person can become a tzaddik. Way number one, option number one, is to work years and years on avodas hamidas, on Torah, on asmoda, on all the things that a yid has to work on throughout his lifetime, and eventually after years and years and years, you become a tzaddik. That's amazing. There is one other way, and that what he says is that when you're faced with an asayin, with your face to look at something that you know you should not be looking at, or should not be pressing those buttons, or whatever, and you decide at that moment to turn away, no, I'm not going to look, Zuk the Shem Yishmael, instant tzaddik. You get an instant tzaddik, that's what it is. It's an unbelievable thing. Zuk the Shem Yishmael, that's why when Noach was in the generation that he was, full of the impurity and the tumah and everything that was going on at the time of Noach's generation, and he still was who he was, that's what turned him into a tzaddik. He was a tzaddik because of the impurities. Whereas if he would have been in the generation of Avraham where there wasn't as many impurities and opportunities to look, then he wouldn't have been a tzaddik. Like Neshav L'Klum, it's not worth anything. Which means, Rabbi Isai, for every single one of us, when we have an opportunity to look at something, to press the button, and we say, no, I'm not doing it. Or something that maybe we should talk about as well. I'll do it, but not yet. And by the way, that's a very, very powerful tool. It's a very, very powerful tool when you work with so many different types of people. Is yes, but not yet. You tell Yetzer Hara no, it's not going to work sometimes. Sometimes it will, but often it won't. If you tell him, yeah, no problem, but just not yet. Like in 5 minutes. Right, the Gemara talks about it by dressing in black and dressing up when a person wants to do an Avera, Tosfos over there. But I'll upon him, the idea is sometimes when you delay the Avera or the want to do something, that can be a very powerful tool, a very practical tool, how to try and push off the Yetzer Hara, because by the next 10 minutes, but then hopefully everything will be much easier. You'll calm down, you'll get busy, something will interrupt you, whatever it is in the Yetzer Hara, by then it's like, you lost the power. It's a very powerful thing. But upon him, Noach was a tzaddik because he had the opportunity to look the Zohar Kodesh. At the time right before Mashiach, the Rabbeinu Shalom is going to send the Sultan to try and test every single one of us to see, are you a tzaddik or not? We have an opportunity every single time we walk on the street, every time we're on technology, every time we're faced with a challenge, we have an opportunity to rise ourselves up to the level of an instant tzaddik. So the Heilige Shem Yishmael, it's an unbelievable thing, and we're living in a generation for sure that is definitely equal, or probably maybe even worse, to anything Noach would have ever has seen anyway. And therefore we have an opportunity many, many times to become an instant tzaddik. So what do people say? you know what, there's no point in the whole thing anyway, because I'm going to fall, I'm going to do the Aveira, I'm going to look anyway, and therefore there's no point me trying, because I'm going to do it anyway. We all know we're human beings. Come on, what do you want from me? It's very nice, great shmooze, beautiful, great, but the mice is not negaya to me, because I fall the whole time, and it's not negaya, so I don't need to hear it. It's not negaya even to try. I shouldn't even start. And the answer to that is, Sam Be'eskim Reb Chatzko once said to his Talmidim, and I'm not saying Kippur, but we'll use it over here. And he said like this: imagine if you have a child, a young child. I use this mashal very often with people that call or email with different childis and this in Yonim. This is such a gewaldige mashal. Remember this one. That you have a young child, and this young child gets a beautiful big Lego set, very excited to get this Lego set. It's a huge, thousands of pieces. And he says, I'm going to build the greatest tower, huge tower. And he spends days and days, every day after school. He runs into his room, he starts building the tower, and he does it color-coded. Each floor is a different color. It's beautiful. It took him days and hours and hours and hours. And finally, he's finished, he's completed his beautiful tower. So he climbs up slowly, gets a couple of chairs, climbs up, stands at the top of his tower that he made. He is so excited, you can't imagine. The look on his face, the smile, it's worth $1 million. A few minutes later, he's jumping up and down, and he falls. And when he's on the floor, he starts to cry. Tati, Tati, quickly come. His father comes in, thinking maybe something happened to him. He says, what happened? He said, Tati, Tati, my tower fell. And he said, no, no, no. My dear son, your tower didn't fall. Your tower's still there. You just fell. And if it's there, it means you can get back up on that tower. Rabbi said, every time we work on it, yes, we may fall. And yes, it may be difficult, and there are times that it's taka too difficult, and we will fall. And that's the metzias of a human being, that's the Yetzer Hara that we have, and that's the world that we're living in, and we have to recognize that. But every time we try, and every time we push off the Yetzer Hara, push off the desire, push off the want, then we're building the tower bigger and bigger. And yes, sometimes we may fall down from that tower. But once we built the tower, we can easily get back on and climb back up to the top. But we have to try, and we have to keep trying in that way. It's such an important thing. I asked a soldier recently who's involved in the war. I said, let me ask you just a random question. I need this for share. Just tell me if you can answer this one. I said, imagine if Rahman litzlan, you're in the middle of a mission, and one of your team members falls down. He's been shot. He's been shot. Rahman litzlan, he was shot. And he's down on the floor. Now obviously you have to help him, you have to bring him into safety, whatever it is. Whatever you have to do in a practical way, then I'm not getting involved in what the protocol is, how you deal with it. That's for you to deal with. But my question is like this. Should you sit there on the floor and start to cry? Is that the appropriate response? And he said, what are you, crazy? It's the greatest sakana. We're in the middle of a war, what are you doing? And you have to bring him in, you have to see if you can help him, you can treat him, if you can save him, whatever you have to do, you do. But to sit there and cry, it's a terrible thing. You're in the middle of a war. Rabbi said, we're in the middle of a war. What are we going to do? We fell down. Okay, Yetzer Hara got us today. Beseda, what are we going to do? We're going to cry? We're going to get depressed. We're going to get upset. We're going to get all down. Look at this. This is how it happens. There's a Mordecai Gemara, Rabbi say. The Gemara Baba Kama declares the following Shaila. The Gemara says like this: what happens if you have two guys carrying a glass, beautiful, clear utensil made of glass, very fragile? First guy's walking down the street. He falls down, he's on the floor. The second guy behind him, who's also holding a glass kli, is walking behind, doesn't notice the first guy is on the floor, trips on the guy number one, smashes the glass kli that he's holding in his hand. Frank the Gemara the Kasha. Who has to pay for the glass kli? Guy number one, who's on the floor, or guy number two that was walking behind the guy that fell, should have looked, didn't see, and fell? Who has to pay for the glass kli? Big shail in the Gemara, right? According to many, the one who has to pay is the one on the floor who fell. You know why? Because, says the Gemara, he should have got up and he did not. Said the Balei Musa from this Gemara, what do you see? It's a beautiful you sight. You see, enachanami, falling, no one's going to be in trouble, so much so. Enachanami, avada tshuva, we have to do tshuva, we have to try whatever we can. But sometimes for the falling, we're not going to get in trouble for. It's the not getting up afterwards. It's the greatest Eitzah of the Yetzer Hara. The greatest thing the Yetzer Hara can do is not to get you to fall. Anybody can get you to fall. We're human beings, we fall. It's that once you've fallen, once you've broken your streak, then all of a sudden, it's not so exciting to continue. I had a streak, I was going for 40 days, I was going for 100 days, I was going for 4 days, I was going for 4 hours, whatever it is. We have streaks and it gives us the koyach to continue. the greatest Eitzah of the Eitzah is to say, you broke your streak, you may as well do it again, it makes no difference already, you're on the floor anyway, once you're on the floor, there's no point getting up anymore, and you're chayev, not for falling, you're chayev because you did not get up, and you should have got up in that case. And we think sometimes the steps that we take in these inyanim are so small, they're so insignificant, it doesn't mean anything. Anyone that's familiar with how to produce diamonds knows that when you have a diamond of a certain carat and you add just a fraction of a carat, just a small amount, you didn't just change the value in a fraction, in a small amount, you changed it in a huge way. And therefore the same is with us. When we try and take little baby steps towards where we're meant to get, it's not just we've made ourselves just a little bit better. We've literally changed ourselves completely. The greatest Yetzer Hara is the Yetzer Hara of depression. You did it anyway, and now you're going to daven Shemona Esrei. You think HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to listen to your Shemona Esrei right now? After what you just looked at, after what you did in the bathroom, what are you, crazy? You think Hashem wants to listen? The answer is yes. Because He created you, and He created you with your Yetzer Hara, and He knows your taivas, and He knows your passions, and He knows your environment, and He knows your upbringing. And still, He said, I want to hear your Shemona Esrei. We have to try and pick ourselves up whenever we fall. We have to try to push off the Yetzer Hara. When we get that desire, push it off just a little bit. It helps tremendously. Try whatever you can to keep yourself for as long as you can. The images eventually go away. Things get cleaner, things get better. Do tshuva, talk to Hashem, ask the Rabbeinu Shalom for assistance. What greater can you do to ask Hashem, I'm trying, help me. Don't put me in these situations, or if you do, at least give me the koyach to fight. And if we fall, we're human beings, that's okay. We're going to keep on going. We're going to keep fighting. We're not giving up this fight. This is the last fight of the Yetzer Hara before Mashiach. This is the fight. Choose. Do you want to be at tzaddik instantly? Or do you want to have to work years and years on that also? Don't give up this fight. And the last eitzah I can give you is celebrate every success. And people, I cannot say this enough times. Celebrate every single success you have in this inyan. That means if you managed to push off the desire for 1 hour, that's a celebration. That is a success. You accomplished something. What do you mean by I did that very afterwards? I don't care if you did that very afterwards. You accomplished something by pushing off. And if you celebrate the success of 5 minutes, of 10 minutes, half an hour, that success will lead to another success. And that success will become 3 hours, which will become half a day, which will become a day, which will become a week, which will become a month. Celebrate the small little steps that we make. Push it off as much as you can. But if you fall, know that you're a human being. You've got to get back up. That's what it is. The Toldos Yaakov Yosef brings down in Parsha Shovovim a moedik azach. He brings what he calls as a children's joke. That he says that somebody fell into a pit and they're screaming to get out. They're desperate to get out. They couldn't climb out of the pit. And a person passed by and he said, I don't understand, why don't you just go home and get a ladder? This way we'll be able to climb out of the pit. So the Toldos Yaakov Yosef brings this in Parsha Shovovim as a joke. Tamid Abal Shem Tov HaKadosh bring down. Pshat is that every person has to be prepared before you fall. Bring the ladder if you know you're going to fall. And therefore if you know you're going to fall, prepare yourself for that fall. Know what you're going to do after the fall. And Be'ez Hashem the Rabbeinu Shalom will give us Sach Siyata Dishmaya in this inyan to Makadosh ourselves and make a Kiddush Hashem in the world. Shkoyach.